Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro. Welcome to the RTO show. I'm your host, Pete. Today we're talking rent-to-own with Ben McCauley from Castle Rentals in Arkansas. And one of the reasons why we're talking to Ben today is because he has, or is part of, a very unique setup where they actually have pawn and rent-to-own under the same roof. Ben, first off, thank you for being on the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, Pete. I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate the honor of being invited.
Absolutely. Now, here's one of the questions that I have. Before we get into everything, what's your background in rent-to-own? Where did you come from? Where are you going?
Well, the entirety of my rent-to-own experience has been with this same company. I started with Castle 25 years ago. A very cool company to work for. But in that period of time, of course, I've run the gamut of positions. I've run multiple locations. Currently, I'm running our Centerton store in Centerton, Arkansas, and I'm also filling the role of our marketing director. So we're in a couple of different hats.
Now, I noticed that you have 6 different locations, correct?
Yes, we're all over Northwest Arkansas right now. We've pretty much stayed within this area. It's a really great area. I mean, as far as the economy is extremely strong, very fast growing area. So we're really in the right spot.
Now, you say you started 25 years ago. At what point in time did you decide this is it? Rent to own is what I'm going to do, or did it take a little while? I mean, because of course you didn't start out in the regional position, right? You started out as everybody else did, and then kind of worked your way up, correct?
Sure. I started out as an account manager. I had no idea what I was doing. I just responded to an ad. I had never, no experience at all as an account manager, and so unfortunately, at the time I came on, the account manager that I was replacing was only going to be around one more day, and he didn't have a lot of information for me. So I just had to wing it there for the first couple of weeks and get my feet. But fortunately, I was able to find some good resources and become successful at that and just work my way up from there.
True rent to own history right there. I mean, I'll tell you what, anybody who's been in this business a long time has really worked their way up to be where they are. You know, when you say 25 years, man, that's a tribute to what Castle Rental has been doing. So who technically owns Castle Rent?
Well, there are 3 owners. One is the original company founder. His name is Ron Connolly, a really good guy. He started the company about 43 years ago. And then in recent years, Kent Beckloff, who used to be our company director, bought in, and then also Carson Hicks. So Carson's been with the company 32 years. Kent Beckloff's been with the company 35 years. So we really have an advantage there because at the helm of our company, we have over a century of cumulative experience in both pawn and rent to own.
That's a lot of history to be able to pull from. Thank goodness. Now, when you talk about the rental side and we talk about the pawn side, because that's really what we want to get into. That's what I want to know. When did that happen? Like, did it start from 2 different starting points as far as the pawn and the rental? And then, like, when was it a decided factor, like they should be as one?
Well, it's kind of interesting because, and hopefully Ron would forgive me if he were to listen to this podcast if I get some of the details wrong. But like I said, he started the company off many, many years ago. But he started as a television repairman, working at a television retailer. And then he was recruited by Curtis Mathis to do the same job for them. He put in a few years at Curtis Mathis, and they gave him his own store. And so he bought in a Curtis Mathis franchise, and they did mostly retail TVs and the big boxy console TVs and some stereos, and then and movie rental. And so anyway, he started off with that, and then it became very successful. Movie rentals went crazy back in the VHS days, and that was before all the major players moved into the area, like Blockbuster.
Oh my goodness, VHS. I remember as a kid going into Blockbusters and kind of hunting videos for Friday or Saturday night. That was the thing to do.
It was a business that was for a short time being carried by movie rentals. And then gradually that rent-to-own business on TVs began to build. And then they started to introduce other products like stereos, VHS players, and then eventually furniture and appliances. But anyway, so he expanded. He opened some more Curtis Mathis's. And during this time, he also opened his first pawn shop, which was called 71 Pawn Center, not far away from the original Curtis Mathis. But although his particular Curtis Mathis locations were doing really well, the Curtis Mathis Corporation went bankrupt. And so at that point, he could either close up shop or he could do something different. And he just decided, I really like the business I'm in. I'm just going to create my own brand. So he created Castle Rental. It was called Castle Rental Center at that point. And so he had a chain of Castle Rental centers and a chain of 71 pawn centers that he built. And so ran them independent of one another for many years. And then about 15 years ago, somebody had the revelation that both businesses were catering to a very similar demographic.
Absolutely.
And so when they thought of it in those terms, they thought, well, heck, we could combine these businesses. So he decided to take these two conventional businesses and combine them into a very unique business that would do both. And so we've been Castle Rental and Pawn ever since.
Now that's pretty amazing. Usually pawn and RTO are on opposite ends of the table, almost like credit and sales, and they're bickering because although you definitely have the same demographic of customer, we approach it from a very different standpoint. Now, being a pawn shop and being an RTO center, when everything was happening these last couple of years, there was a decline in walk-in traffic, right? So we started going to different means, online and a lot of social media marketing, and the walk-in traffic kind of declined. But that's in a traditional sense. Did the pawn side of your rent-to-own business help you guys through the pandemic in a different way than normal RTO stores? Did it really help the walk-in traffic, or did it not change that much at all?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It helped a great deal. One was because in the state of Arkansas, the governor deemed pawnbrokers to be an essential service. So during COVID-19, none of them were shut down. And so they really thrived during COVID. And of course, even if you set COVID-19 aside, the two businesses complement each other. In the months when rent-to-own is declining, like in January, pawn is booming with really high pawn volume. And in months like March, when rent-to-own may be losing some revenue streams due to people paying off with their tax returns, retail sales are exploding on the pawn side with the same tax money. So when one is down, the other one tends to be up. So they really do complement each other well.
And who would have thought that putting those two under one roof would have really paid off in the way it does? Now, when you talk about RTO and you talk about pawn, I can envision, when we first sat down, and just so everybody knows, Ben and I actually met at a Versorent meeting where they're having a training convention in Atlanta, Georgia, and we kind of sat down and just started talking. I found this the most amazing thing. Who would have thought that Versorent would be the one to bring us together? But it just goes to show you that the RTO world although it spans miles and states and different geological regions, we are a close-knit group, so thank you to Versorent for that. But I know what my vision was when I first open it up in my head, and then I saw some pictures that you sent me with beautiful stores. But how much would you say for our listeners is under the square footage of RTO versus pawn shop under one roof?
Well, I would say as far as the number of square feet dedicated, it depends on the location as far as, if it's even Steven or if there's a smaller portion of our square footage devoted to one side or the other. That's just going to be location to location. But I can say that with certainty that our locations are much larger in square footage than most other rental dealers or pawnbrokers. The location I'm at is only 9,000 square feet, but that's larger than some other, rental dealers. But some of our locations are larger than 20,000 square feet, like the one that we have in Rogers or Berryville, Arkansas. Quite large. You can imagine in that many square feet, there's quite a selection on both halves of the business.
When you're talking about 20,000 square feet, that is like a shopping plaza as compared to some of our RTO stores. Now, I've heard a lot of guys say, I've heard from Rack and buddies and a couple of other ones that like 6,000 to 7,000 square feet is probably a sweet spot. You do have your bigger ones and your smaller ones depending on what you're able to get and how much you're paying per square footage. But 6 to 7 is where I heard probably you're going to try to go for. Of course, 9, like you said, would probably be a little bit on the bigger end. 20 is like the grandfather, right? 20 is like, oh my God, that's a huge square footage footprint that you guys have. So I can only imagine now. I think we also talked about this when you were down there. I couldn't imagine the price that you're paying per square footage on the lease on that. But then you said Arkansas has some really favorable rental rates as far as leasing is concerned. Yeah,
that's a fact. Certainly by comparison to other areas of the state and even other areas of the nation, it's very it's just very cheap. It's just cheap rent. Now, but I can say that we don't have to pay rent because we own all of our buildings. And so that's just another thing that makes us unique. We are a debt-free company, and so we've been debt-free for 43 years. All of the buildings have been paid for in full, and so essentially the owner decides, what kind of rent is going to be charged for a location, and so it's a very advantageous arrangement for the stores.
That's definitely smart thinking on the part of the owners. If you own it, there's nothing better than that. Now, I always heard, and I want to say I never saw the entire Roy Kroc movie. A friend of mine keeps on telling me I need to watch it. But essentially, McDonald's was in the real estate business, not in the McDonald's burger business. And basically, they own their locations, and that is part of why they're so successful. And I would imagine that's the same thing for Castle Rentals, that if you own those locations and you are debt-free, you can kind of run your business in a different way without worrying that you have to make so much or so little in whatever time frame that you have. That's a great business idea. Now, are all the employees rent-to-own employees and pawn employees, or do you have pawn employees and rent-to-own employees? Do they kind of talk? Is it like set up that way, or they're cross-trained and they do everything?
Yes, we train all of our employees to handle transactions on both sides of the business. And I mean, it's a lot to learn because we're talking about two totally different businesses, and each of them have a lot of facets, and they each have their own software. But we hire high aptitude people. And because we hire high aptitude people, they assimilate all that information well, and things tend to run smoothly, So yeah, they learn a lot. We don't have huge staff. That's another reason why everyone needs to be cross-trained. But yeah, everybody knows both parts of the business.
I'm going to ask you a little bit of a 411, Ben. You guys hire with high aptitude, and that's great. Do you use any specific software or testing or modeling to review your applicants and your interviewees? Do you do any pre-tests, or do you just go off of feeling like this guy is hungry and he wants to get it done, or gal? Or is there a certain way that you pick out the people that you think are good for Castle Rentals?
Well, this isn't necessarily a plug for Indeed.com, but we do use them to hire, and Indeed does give you the option to send aptitude tests to your applicants. So we elect to do that, and so those are scored, and that they'll rate. Indeed will rate those and let you know how well they did. And so if they're rating well, then they may merit a interview. And when we interview, we're pretty systematic about the questions we ask, and really drill down to what the employee really wants and what their expectations are. And we tend to get some good people that way.
So no plug for Indeed.com, guys, but if you guys are hiring, Ben says it's a good idea to send out the test first. So is Castle Rentals looking to expand? And if they do expand in the future, are you going to stick with the pawn RTO model, or would it be one or the other? Or is it forever, it's always just going to be the pawn and RTO model together?
Well, we don't really have any reason to change. It's the old adage: if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's really working for us. Aside from just the regular introduction of new technologies to improve efficiencies, I really don't think that any change is anticipated. But we are constantly adding new technologies that improve our business. Just case in point, over the next week, we're adding an app that's going to give our rental customers access, to their accounts and the ability to shop us and things like that, complete their order forms. So that's a huge advantage. And we're the only pawn broker in the area that has its own app. So that's just very convenient for our customers to be able to start a pawn from home or pay on their layaway or check their due date and things like that.
Now, I tell you what, Ben, 7 stores keep me absolutely busy from morning till night all the time. And now you say that you have 6 stores, but you're also acting marketing director. Is that something that's going to change? Because I know that that's a lot to deal with. Or do you have it all down? Can you do both without a hiccup? And if so, what is your secret?
Well, my secret, honestly, is that I devote quite a bit of my time training my people. And so that frees me up to do other things. I have a schedule so that every associate has time with me to train in the morning. So they have one day a week that they have an hour of training with me. And so we go through a list of things they need to know. And then they rate themselves on their level of understanding for each item. And so it's a pretty long list of things that I want everyone to know. And so I never stop training. And so that's been a huge advantage to me. It frees me up to do marketing and other things.
That's actually a really good idea. I was talking to a few people, and every so often they try to get the training in there, but dedicating an hour quite frequently I think that's a good way to do it. You might have just given me something to chew on, man. I'm going to be taking that back and really taking a look at it. Now, is Castle Rentals part of the Trib Group, or are you guys part of Nationwide, or nothing at all?
Well, we're part of Nationwide and APRO, so we get a lot of support from both of those groups.
Do you find that one Trib versus Nationwide, do you prefer one or the other in the sense that one does something that the other doesn't, or is that an owner decision?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space, Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing, and let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and Trib? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
Well, honestly, really, that was an owner decision, but my experience with Nationwide has all been very positive. Anytime that we've needed support for any one, category or, category of goods, or maybe we're interested in adding a new facet to our business, there's always someone there at Nationwide that has some experience or connections that can help us towards that. And so, I give Nationwide my vote any day.
You know what? I'm not going to argue with that. I know there's some great people. I know some great people at Nationwide. We actually did just do an interview with Mike Tissett, who is the president of Trib. So I would feel terrible if I didn't say that Trib do their job too. They do it very well, but I know that Nationwide is also a great group. Now, when you're looking at rent-to-own as a whole in Arkansas, I know sometimes down here we've been having some, and all over the place, we have some issues just making sure that rent-to-own stays viable, whether it be with the legal system or whether it be down in Washington. How does the legality work in Arkansas? Is it favorable to rent-to-own? Is it a good state to be in? Or is it, do you find that you're fighting your way sometimes?
Well, I may be a little biased, and really my experience in rent-to-own has been limited to Arkansas, so I may not have a great basis for comparison to answer that question, but from what I'm told, there are some huge tax advantages for rent-to-own in the state of Arkansas. And also there aren't, caps assessed on terms, and on the pawn side, there are no caps assessed on interest and things like that can really hamper profitability for those two businesses.
Now, I know that you've said in the past in some of our conversations that sometimes having access to the pawn side of the business kind of helps you with your collection side as far as the RTO. How does that work? What advantages do you have having a pawn shop inside the RTO store?
Well, it helps us in many different ways. One is that pawn is kind of a vendor of sorts in the sense that it can provide unique rent-to-own opportunities. And what I mean by that is there are certain pawn retail items that can make great rent-to-own opportunities. So let's say, for instance, a customer walks into the store today, they're looking at your retail department, they find a retail guitar, it's $200, and they want to make an offer on your guitar. Maybe they offer $140. Take it or leave it, and so that could be a rent-to-own opportunity, because we could say, well, listen, we got the price on this guitar is a really great price for this model. What if we told you that you could go home with this guitar for $20?
Oh, wow.
Instead of the $140 that you came prepared to offer. Well, that's going to get their attention.
You know it will.
And so there's an opportunity for us where we could convert that guitar to a rent-own agreement, and they could make that purchase on weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly payments, whatever jives with their pay schedule. They get to keep more money in their pocket that they were prepared to burn today. But we secure a new rental customer and a new revenue stream, and potentially more rental business in the future.
I love the flexibility.
So that may make a lot of sense in that situation. But also, there's other ways that pawn is advantageous, because, you may have a customer that maybe they've fallen behind a little bit on their rental payments. And we say, well, have you got anything lying around the garage, that's a value that you may not have a need for, or may not have a need for several weeks or something like that. Maybe it's a chainsaw or a drill, or, who knows. But if they bring in upon it, we can just do the pawn. We can take that money, apply it to get their account current. So that's also an advantage. We also can use the pawn for down payment. So maybe a customer needs to get a washer and dryer set. Maybe they just moved into a new place, don't have those appliances, and maybe payday is not until next Friday, and it's Thursday of this week, and they can't go 8 or 9 days without laundry being done, And so we say, well, have you got anything at home you'd like to sell, or maybe just get a loan on, so that we could make a down payment on this washer and dryer, get it in your house today?
I'm telling you, Ben, right now, this is absolutely blowing my mind. Being able to use a pawn to open up a rental is just amazing. I think this is almost a way to go.
So yeah, there's some advantages there, and also having that pawn and rent-own together, we're getting some cross traffic that we may not have otherwise gotten back when we had pawn and rent-own separate. Maybe that rent-own customer would have never entered your pawn business, or vice versa. But now, you come in to shop for that washer and dryer, and while you're there, you may see some other retail items. You may decide you'll shop for a handgun, or your next crossbow, or drill, or piece of jewelry.
I'm going to tell you right now, those are excellent. I mean, I never thought to use pawn in that particular way when it came to rent to own, and, whether it be a down payment or a payment idea or a payment assistance. That's actually amazing. Now, we did talk in our previous talks. You did say that there was another company. So there's only two companies in America that actually do pawn and RTO in the same. I'm not going to make you say their name, but are you aware of who they are? Are they still open? Are they competitors in your market?
I think they're still in business, but they're in Maine, so they couldn't be much further away from our market than they are. They're no threat to Castle right now, unless they expand nationwide.
The bigger question is chicken or the egg. Who came first?
Well, as far as we know, we came first. I think that they're a little bit newer to who knows, maybe there was someone that just happened to visit Northwest Arkansas and saw our business and took it on as a business idea. You just never know.
I can only imagine, right? Now, as you're the marketing director, right? We're going to put the regional aside. We're going to do marketing director. When you're thinking about marketing for your particular stores, for the rent to own and the pawn, do you do it as a united front, or do you approach it as this is a pawn situation, this is a rent to own situation, and then, you kind of just send a glance over, but they are united? Or is it always, when you're marketing it, it's always, we do pawn, we do rent to own, and this is what we have available?
Well, the lines are slightly blurred, but we do, for the most part, market independently because, they're two totally different types of business. And branding is a challenge. It really is, because you want the customer to know what type of business you're in. And people who are new to the area, they may not really understand what Castle Rental and Pawn does. Maybe they think, that our business is renting pawn stuff, but that really isn't. And that's just a minuscule percentage of our transactions. I mean, the majority of our items that are rent-owned home furnishings, electronics, and appliances, those are all new from the manufacturer, just like you'd see at any other rental dealer. So anyway, when it comes to marketing, we do marketing on Facebook, and we have separate Castle Rental and Castle Pawn pages on Facebook, and on our website, we have our Castle RP website. There's a link on our rental page that will link you to our pawn page. So we do keep those separate so as not to be too terribly confusing to our customers, and that allows them to just go to the pawn site and maybe start a transaction there, or shop our retail inventory, or remain on the rental site and shop our rental inventory.
So I got a question. You're called Castle Rentals. Do you guys have a particular theme that you go with when you're marketing, like royalty, or throwing castles in there as far as, this is the best, from Castle Rentals, or whatever the case is, using it as a theme? Or is it just straight, Castle Rentals as a name?
I believe that the company got its name from the old saying that your home is your castle. And so our spinoff slogan has always been treating you like royalty. And I think the underlying message is that we can turn your home into a castle and you'll always get the royal treatment, that sort of thing.
Now, I'm going to expect to see that on a T-shirt, and I'm going to expect to see you in a video sometime soon saying that, right, Ben?
Right on.
So talking about marketing, are you guys big into the social media? You said you're on Facebook. Is that something that you guys are constantly in? I know there's a lot of companies now that are kind of really getting into that. They're on there every single day, or at least every other day. They have a lot of live spots as far as Facebook and stuff like that. Are you guys doing that same thing, or your marketing approach is a little bit different?
I would definitely say we have a different type of marketing approach, but social media is really where the thrust of our advertising takes place. I mean, the truth is, we don't do much advertising, conventional advertising, when it comes to like television ads or radio ads. So you'll seldom ever hear us on the radio or see us on the TV. But the interesting thing is that, if you ask anyone in advertising, well, if you don't advertise, you'll die. That's what they tell you. But the truth is, that's not true. And sometimes a whole lot of advertising is just a poor compensation for bad customer service. I mean,
that is the cold, hard truth. And Ben, I don't think you could have said it any better than that. That was a bit of the truth just put right in your face. I like it. I like it a lot, actually.
That's just the truth. Sometimes you got to hire the Hollywood star to be your spokesperson because you can't get your customers to tell someone else how great you are. And so instead of throwing a whole lot of money into advertising, we just treat our customers really great. We've been in business for 43 years. And on the rental side of our business, we're competing against major national brands. You can throw a stone for most of our locations and hit an Aaron's or a Rent-A-Center or a Buddy's. And heck, You got Rent-A-Center with 3,000 locations, and Aaron's with a couple of thousand, and Buddy's with 300, and here we are with just a handful. And despite that, we're holding our own against national brands in our areas and have for a very long time. And it's not because we're the biggest or we spend the most money on advertising, but because we offer excellent customer service. And of course we got a great program, and we do things that other rental companies don't. But that there's 4 P's of the business. It's product, presentation, price, and people. And you can go to another rental dealer and you can find a decent presentation or a price that's not all that much higher than ours, or maybe some nice product, but they don't have our people. Our people are the benefit that Castle offers that no one else can.
Completely agree with you. And I like the way you said that people run the business, right? We can have everything amazing, but without the right customer service and the right people. And those 4 points there are just spot on. It's nice to hear you say that, because sometimes I think we do try to do our best to put forward that vision of what we are and what we have and what we look like. But if somebody walks into the front door and they don't see that same thing, that same advertisement when they walk in, it's almost a little bit of a letdown. And we don't want that. And I think you're spot on. I agree with that 100%. And I can see why Castle Rental's been around for a long time. Who was your predecessor? Who did you take the spot from?
That depends on which spot you're talking about. I've held several different positions over the years. I don't recall the name of the account manager that I succeeded when I first came on with the company. But anyway, I'll tell you, Kent Beckloff, the previous company director and now owner, has been a huge mentor to me. I've learned a great deal from him, but I've also learned a lot from the other owners. They're just a wealth of knowledge. I just appreciate their character. I promise they're not listening to this podcast right now. They may never hear it. So, but I just can't say enough good things about them. And of course, that's why I've stuck around so many years, just because they deposited so much in me. And so I've just had an opportunity to return some of those deposits back to the company and to the people that work with me.
Awesome. Now, before we get off, I have to ask, what's your craziest RTO pawn story? What's something that stands out that you can give me a nice juicy tale on?
Well, sure, there are lots of crazy stories. I don't know if some of those can be shared on the air, but you can imagine that on our pawn side, we see a lot of very unique items. People are constantly bringing in things we've never seen before. We get unique, one-of-a-kind jewelry. We get unique, weapons, and one that really stands out. There was a guy that came in one time with a small box, and he said, I have something here I'd like to sell. And so what he brought out of that small box, it was a small wooden box, was a small Gatling gun that he had handcrafted to scale out of steel. So he was a retired engineer, and evidently he had handcrafted hundreds of 9 caliber bullets for this thing. And so it was a fully functional miniature handheld Gatling gun that would shoot through a coffee can.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
So, we see really unique items like that all the time. So every day you just never know what's going to walk through the door. So anyway, I wouldn't say a lot of crazy stories. Anyway, ones that I can talk about, but certainly it's been a good run for our company. And so I would say some of the things that we're doing that just make us better is, and this is something I didn't even tell you about, we take trade-ins. So if someone were to let's say they wanted to lease a sectional today, and they had a sectional at home, and maybe it wasn't in fantastic shape, but they weren't prepared to make a down payment because payday was 2 weeks away, we could say, hey, why don't you just trade in your old sectional as your down payment?
Wait, what?
So what we would do with that sectional, it's not going to get rented. It's going to go to a needy family in our community. So if someone trades in an old washer and dryer set that still works, we'll give that away. So all of those just go right back into the community. But that's just a unique element, and it enables someone to get the items they need today with a trade-in. And it's just good for them. It's good for the community. We secure a new customer. So it's a win. And also our company is giving back to our community all the time. We do food drives and we work with other charities in the area because, we appreciate the people around us. We're an Arkansas-born, Arkansas-run business. And so everywhere we are, we've been there before anybody else. And we know the people in our community, and we try and serve them.
Ben, I'm going to tell you right now, that is an amazing idea. I'm going to tell you right now, every so often when we're talking on the show, somebody says something and it just puts everything on its ear. I really like that idea. I like the idea of trading in because you're going to secure the customer. You're not giving them an opportunity to go back to it because you're helping them essentially in some type of way, get rid of it, dispose of it, but you're putting it back out to the community for people who actually are in need, not keeping that, but still you're kind of servicing two with one stone. That's a great idea for anybody listening. I'm telling you guys right now, there's always those gems out there that you get from talking to different rent-to-own companies. And let me tell you, I've got two here, pawn and rent-to-own in one building, and then trade-ins for product. I think that's a great idea on top of the fact of being able to use pawn items for rental items and trade-ins to, help the community. I love that. I love that a lot. So you know what, Ben, I've got to ask, because this is the Leroy Steen question of the day. Are you a sales guy or are you a credit guy?
Well, that's a great question. I would say by nature, I'm probably a sales guy. I really enjoy people. I enjoy interacting with people. But I cut my teeth in the rent-own business as a account manager. And so for the first, year and a half of my career with Castle, I was running their accounts. And I'll tell you what, if you want to be successful in accounts, you've really got to learn some people skills. You got
definitely people skills and selling the reinstatement.
You've got to be able to endear yourself to the customer. You've got to learn how to be a good listener and be compassionate. And so I probably learned a lot of my people skills that contribute to successful sales as an account manager. So I wouldn't say that they're independent of one another, but I let the account managers take care of the accounts today, and I just focus on growth.
I will tell you that I think the best salespeople started off in accounts, or at least have an amazing understanding of how it works, because one does not survive without the other. And I want to say that if anybody that's gone into sales first, I'm not taking that away from you, so don't think that. But I will say that once you understand how the rental renewals work, how the accounts are being saved or not saved, or what criteria you're using to control your collections, you can do a better job servicing not only the customer, but the store itself, the company itself, when you're in sales, knowing how it runs, knowing what really makes the world go around at rent-to-own. And I want to say, you can't have a rent-to-own business without collections, but you can have a whole lot of sales. And I think one goes into the other. Making sales without collections isn't a good idea. So you have to have both. But I think the transition of understanding how you're selling, what you're doing so that you don't overload, making sure that you set them up on the right due date, making sure that there's something for everybody. In other words, this might not be for you, but that's not your only ability to get, right? So maybe it's not a 55-inch TV, maybe it's a 43-inch TV, maybe it's not a 65, maybe it's a 55. But having the salesmanship and also knowing what the customer, you're trying to benefit the customer. I'm still thinking, I really love the trade-in thing. I think that's a great idea, probably an amazing idea. Never really thought about that. I'm going to have to go to the owners and say, listen, guys, there's something going on out there that we're missing. Old Ben told me the real deal in Arkansas, they're taking trade-ins, man. No matter if it's pawn shop or whether it's regular, they're taking trade-ins, and I think it's a great idea. Ben, I just want to tell you, you've opened up our eyes over here at the RTO show, and hopefully everybody else out there who's listening, you guys got something from this podcast today. Castle Rentals probably one of the most unique things that I've heard of, but I got some good takeaways from this, Ben. I'm telling you guys are probably doing it a lot better than some other ones that I know of. So I really appreciate your time. And I really want you to know we appreciate what you guys are doing out there, representing RTO with great customer service and a niche of pawn. It doesn't get better than that. It's always something that we want to do. We always want to get that stigma of RTO changed. And this is exactly why we have this show. We open up the doors to everybody and let everybody know we're here to service the community. Such a great day to talk to you, Ben. I'm so glad that, we had this opportunity. Listen, if anybody wants to ask Ben a question or anything, you guys are more than welcome to email the show at pete@thertoshowpodcast.com. Send me your questions. If there's anything that you have for Ben or Castle Rentals, I will pass that along and get an answer for you. If you guys have any other questions on what's going on in the renter-owned world, please look us up on www.thertoshowpodcast.com and come see us. Ben, just so you know, we're going to get you a free shirt for being on the show today because I appreciate that. So we're going to send that out your way. I'll get your information. Yeah, we're gonna get you something for that, and just for sharing your wisdom with us and taking out your time, Ben. I really do appreciate it. There's nothing more that I love on the show to have new and fresh ideas to share with everybody. Thanks for being a part of the show today.
Hey, thank you, Pete. I appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you, everybody, for checking this out with us. If you can, go to social media, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, get all the insights on what's going on. Visit us on www.thertoshowpodcast.com. Don't forget we have some shirts on there. And for everybody who doesn't know, we appreciate everything that you guys do for the show. This is Pete, your host for the RTO Show. Let's talk rent-own.